Welcome. It's Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 4 p.m. We're at the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority Board of Directors meeting. We're at the Carson City Community Center in the Robert Bob Kroll Boardroom. If we could get a call to order, a roll call.
Here.
Stacy Giomi,
I'm still here.
Steve Kim,
Here.
Bobby Rader, here. Mike Jones. Here. We have a quorum.
All right. If I could ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Right now, I'll ask for public comment. Desi, is there anyone for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a couple callers. Callers, when you hear the beep, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record. Caller, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record.
Did we lose them?
Mr. Chair, they're there. I'm just not sure that they can hear us.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
Hi, go ahead, caller.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name is Sandra, and I'm representing the Hampton Inns here in Carson. Good afternoon. I just want to publicly put in my vote of confidence for the 1%. Having been one of the original people that was here during the first go-around, I could say that, in all honesty, I was a little hesitant when this subject came around again, just basing it off of everything we had experienced during the first round. The only thing that I could ask is that there be a lot of transparency, a lot of reporting, things that, the lodging properties can see and be a part of, whereas the last round we weren't included. We weren't informed of anything, and that was definitely the real concern. I know with this go-around, I am confident that it's going to be much better. And knowing a lot of artists and, having a kid that is also a very artsy kid, I am 100% full support of whatever we decide to do with the arts.
All right. Well, Sandra, thank you. We appreciate the comments.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Caller, it is your turn for public comment. Caller, can you hear us? Are you there? That is all for public comment, Mr. Chair.
All right. If there's no other people on the phone, Board Member Kim, I believe you have a public comment you would like to make.
Yeah, I would also speak in support of the bill. I think that it's a good idea for the obvious reasons that she mentioned, and I think it does a great deal for providing additional heads and beds, which is the goal, I think, for all of us. So I would be in support of it 100%.
Thank you. I think I'd like to make a public comment at this time. I'll take off my chair hat and put on my lodging property hat and speak in support of continuing the 1% tax for arts and culture. I think and I've said it many times, that any successful DMO and tourism agency has to have an arts and culture portion to it. If you don't, you're, I think, missing the boat. I think a lot of people come to our city for a core event, maybe it's a sporting event, but they also look for other things to do when they're there. So as a lodging property operator in the city, I'm in full support of the 1% continuation of the tax. I just wanted to make that a public comment. Is there any other public comment? Oh, we do have one more.
Yes. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Fernando calling from the new Staybridge Suites. Fernando Madrigal. I'd like to make a public comment. Our hotel will be the newest hotel in the market, and as really an outsider, someone who has been in Reno for the last 3 years, who has witnessed all our the micro events and really the stimulation to the local economy. It's unbelievable. I'm not originally from this area. I've been amazed at how much activity does go on, primarily with the art cultures. You know, Burning Man brings a significant, just singling out one event, and really the attitude towards art is extremely welcoming here in this city. And geographically, I think that we, as Carson City, we couldn't be in a more in a better geographical position. We're in between one of the fastest growing cities. A report came out that Reno specifically has number 4 in terms of just a soft bedrock for the local economy during everything that's that's happening right now. We're going to be a feeder. That is going to be a feeder city for us. They are committed to the art, and we have one of the most pristine art pictures and artsy, Lake Tahoe. What a piece of art, that we have in our backyard. So we're in between both of those worlds, natural art and just the artistic point, where you do have people in the city who are interested in really pushing that agenda forward. And the way I see it, this isn't a one-year project. It's, we have the ability to push for the next 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, to be a hub for arts and tourism. And I fully support all the efforts being made and the tax. So just wanted to make that public.
Well, thank you, Fernando. I appreciate the comments.
Christopher, it is your turn for public comment. Christopher, can you hear us? It is your turn for public comment.
Christopher? Did we lose him, Desi?
We must have, Mr. Chair.
Well, we'll invite Christopher back. We have a public comment at the end of the meeting that he's more than welcome to call into. With that, we'll move on to item 5, approval of the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 CTA board meeting. Does anyone have any changes or concerns with the meeting agenda, meeting minutes?
This is Bobby. I'd like to make a move to accept the minutes as written.
Can I get a second? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 6, adoption of the agenda. I see no reason, unless a board member wants to move anything in the agenda around, I say we take it as presented. All right, we'll move on to items 7 and 8, which are the consent agenda. I would ask at this time if any board member wants any item, a specific item pulled from the consent agenda for individual discussion. Please ask now. Is there any member of the public who would like an individual item pulled for discussion on the consent agenda? Right. Can I get a motion?
Yeah, this is Stacy. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item 9, discussion and possible action to recommend the Carson City Board of Supervisors that the board approve the continuation of the 1% transient occupancy tax dedicated to the arts and culture program. David, if you...
Mr. Chair, before we begin on this item, I have one thing that I would like to discuss with you before we proceed.
Sure.
Would it be possible to take a 5-minute recess and then continue with the item?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll need to recess for 5 minutes. All right. process now. Before we address action item 9, myself and Board Member Kim have a disclosure statement that will need to be read. Board Member Kim, will you proceed?
Steve Kemp for the record. NRS 281A-420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. I am a lodging property operator in Carson City. While I make this disclosure, NRS 281A-420 requires abstention only in clear cases. The 1% tax will not affect me differently from any other lodging property in Carson City, and I do not believe that my judgment is materially affected. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. NRS 281A-420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. I am a lodging property operator in Carson City. While I make this disclosure, NRS 281A-420 requires abstention only in clear cases. The 1% tax will not affect me differently from any other lodging property in Carson City, and I do not believe that my judgment is materially affected. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter. Now let's move on to action item 9. I'm sorry. I think before we move on to item 9, we're going to reopen public comment. And there's someone on the line. Desi?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chris, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record. Chris, are you with
Chris?
us?
Well, I really want to hear what Chris has to say now, but I think we're going to move on with the agenda on item 9. And Chris, please, if you can try again at the end of the meeting at the public comment, please feel free. So now on to action item 9, discussion and possible action to recommend to the Carson City Board of Supervisors that the board approve the continuation of the 1% transient occupancy tax dedicated to the arts and culture program. David, if you might give us a little history and backdrop and regarding the ordinance and where we've come and where we're going.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Jones. For the record, David Peterson, Executive Director with Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. So on your screens, I'm just going to take us back to the January meeting. Question was asked with regard to the 1%, pushing us to 11% as far as our total TOT. Where does that slot us in relative to the other 17 counties and then the different jurisdictions within each county? And so what you see here on the sheet is yellow. You'll see 3 entities that are 11%, including ourselves. And then we color-coded where the green are, those folks are lower, and the light blue, those are all the different areas throughout the state that have a higher lodging tax than we do. So you can see Clark County in aggregate, thank you, Lydia, is about 13.88%. And there's some different breakdowns within Clark County. Douglas County is 13 and 14%, depending on if they're in the valley or at the lake. Elko County for the rural portions, of course, below us. But when you look at the larger cities, Elko is at 14%, West Wendover 16%, and Carlin and Wells are at 12 and 14%. So I just, without going through all of the different counties, Washoe is at 13.5, and then White Pine is 11.5. Ely is specifically 13.5%. So it was a question that came up at our last meeting. And mind you, this is the fiscal 19, so this is coming from the Department of Taxation on the NRS 268 and 244 recaps, of which we actually submit our information for Carson City. So I just wanted everyone to know where we stand as a county relative to our peers in the state. So if there are any questions on this before I jump in, happy to answer those at this time.
No, I found it interesting. We're certainly not anywhere near the top of the scale for counties, and especially like counties in our area.
Yep.
Any questions from the board on this?
Great. So with that, I'll take the board through the last several months of my communication with our hotel, motel, RV park properties here in Carson City regarding continuation of the 1%. So my communication started last fall when we were trying to get the joint Carson City Cultural Commission and CTA board together for a meeting. As you all know, we finally got that meeting to happen in November. All the properties, I did make them aware of that meeting and told them if they'd like to provide public comment at that time, regarding the 1% for arts and culture, they were more than welcome to do that. Based on the decision that was made at that meeting to move the administration of the tax, back underneath the CTA and of course the tasks that were assigned for us to put into the RFP to get a vendor on board. I did pull 2 lodging property meetings together. So the first couple weeks of December, we had 6 properties come on to those meetings. It was during those meetings where I heard overwhelmingly 3 themes come up with the properties. They want to see reporting. Sandra mentioned this on the phone earlier, reporting as to how the monies are being used within the 1%, transparency around the budget and how things are allocated. And then the tracking piece is critical, as you can imagine, for the hotel, motel, RV park property. So if we're going to have events, having those tracking URLs in place to be able to trace those rooms back to arts-related events or cultural events or festivals as a critical piece to that puzzle as well. So that it may be digital or it might just be old-fashioned group and booking codes. So those were 3 things that I can tell you came up during the lodging property meetings. They have come up on my phone calls literally up and through last Friday as it relates to the continuation of the 1%. So fast forward, we had our board meeting in December where we made the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to move the administration of the tax back underneath us. Properties were made aware of that meeting, as well as the Board of Supervisors meeting that took place on the 17th of December. So several emails have went out the door from me personally. I have made a lot of phone calls, spent many hours on the phone with hotel properties. And then, of course, Chris put together the business impact statements, and those went out in January. And not only did they go out to the 23 lodging tax paying properties, they went out to our 28-day properties as well. So between phone calls, emails, and the written communication, everybody has been communicated to. I can assure the board of that regarding the decision that's before you all today. So having said that, based on my communications with the properties, again, we have 23 TOT paying properties in Carson City. I've heard from 17 properties, or 74%, who are in support of the continuation of the TOT. 1 property, representing 4%, is not in support of continuing forward with the 1%. And the other 5 properties, I have not heard back from them one way or the other. So that's 22% of our 23 properties. So 17 for, 1 against, and 5 I have not heard back from as of today's meeting. So that's a brief overview of where I'm at
So
this matter.
the 5 that you haven't heard from, we're going to continue to reach out to them.
I'm going to keep beating the phones, in hopes of hearing back from them, maybe in advance of the Board of Supervisors meeting for the first reading. I think it's going to be scheduled for the first meeting in March. So, so hopefully I'll be able to update those numbers in advance of the Board of Supervisors meeting. But right now we have 74% of our 23 properties who are in support of continuing on with 1%.
Well, I'll open it up for discussion and questions about it, but I think, overwhelmingly, if we have 17 of 18 properties that have responded that are in favor of continuing the 1%, I think that's an overwhelmingly positive statement that the hotel properties are making, but I'm willing to listen to any other comments. Board Member Giammi?
Thank you, Chair. David, is the comments you got back, did they come from your discussion or from the business impact statement?
These are from my conversations with owners and general managers.
Okay, did we get any comments back from the business impact statement?
So there are two, there are three comments. Two are actually applicable to the 1%, and they actually came from board members Kem and Jones. And the other comment came from a 28-day property, and it really had no applicability to the 1%. It was an odd handwritten note from the general manager of a 28-day property, but it actually had nothing to do with the continuation of the 1% for
Okay.
arts and culture.
So the Board of Supervisors will get that information when it, when it comes to us.
That is correct. And it closes, Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, but it closes tomorrow, so we could still see comments through tomorrow.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So relative to that, I'm not sure I agree with Chair Jones. I think you personally have reached out to those 5 properties either via phone call or email on more than one occasion.
That's correct.
How many occasions would you estimate you've reached out to them on? Combined between phone calls
Probably
or letters?
6. Well, 7, I guess, if you include the business impact statement.
I mean, I know we're not voting on this, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't know that I'd spend any more time trying to reach out to them. They've been given ample opportunity through both the business impact statement, which you indicated on the record was mailed directly to them at their address of record.
Correct.
That you've also stated on the record that at least 5 times you've reached out either via phone call or email or regular mail.
Correct.
I don't know that it makes much more sense, in my opinion, to continue to reach out to people who are not responding. Those are all the questions I have relative to that. I do have a comment about the language itself, but I can hold that in abeyance until we're ready to talk about that.
And as far as the ordinance, I was going to let Todd address those adjustments that have been made, if that's okay. Member Giammi?
Okay, if you're ready for that piece of it, Mr. Chair. The ordinance revises several sections, and I should point out in the beginning that the ordinance will be further revised. It will be further revised between now and the Board of Supervisors meeting to put it more in compliance with the drafting standards that the District Attorney's Office is applying to ordinances these days. It's just to bring it current. Those edits will be procedural edits or clerical edits. They will not change the substance of anything that's been presented to you. What is presented to you, what the ordinance does is it first, as kind of a clerical matter, it defines the authority to be a fair and recreation board. In the current ordinance, it refers to a different board. And I wanted to clarify that it's the Fair and Recreation Board that is currently the CTA. The ordinance also revises section 4.08.080, which is the imposition of the tax. The edits make clear that there is a total 11% tax that is not changing. the the tax generally remains distributed the same way it's distributed now. There was a 2% 2% of the tax that could only be used to redeem general obligation bonds. That was altered so that the tax could be must be used to redeem general obligation bonds for those bonds to which it was obligated. But if there were no bonds that currently needed to be redeemed, it could be used for any CTA purpose. On the Virginia and Truckee Railroad, there is a section in here that had a possible sunset. It was a little bit clear as to as to how that applied and what how that particular tax would be applied to the Virginia and Truckee Railroad after the Virginia and Truckee Railroad bonds were paid off. The new ordinance clarifies that language as to how it will be applied to the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. And finally, in the 1% tax that is being discussed today, it expires by limitation on June 1, 2021. The proposed ordinance deletes that subsection so that there will no longer be a sunset clause. And it also provides a reporting section saying that at least once a year, the authority, in this case, the executive director authority or his or her designee, must present a report to of the proceeds and the use of the proceeds from the tax collected under the 1% tax to the board of directors of the CTA, which is you, at least once annually. My understanding is that the executive director is planning on presenting a report to you monthly or at least more frequently than annually. However, for the purposes of the ordinance provides at least once annually.
Thank you, Todd, for the clarification in the edits. Anyone have any questions regarding what we've just heard? Board Member Giammi?
Yeah, I wonder for discussion purposes, and I know we're not really approving the language in the contract, in the ordinance at this meeting. We're just making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to approve the 1% tax for arts and culture, not specifically the language that you've presented today, correct? We're not
Correct.
voting on that.
Correct.
So whatever input we come up with here, you could consider or not as we provide input to you for inclusion in what is ultimately delivered to the Board of Supervisors, correct?
Correct.
So I just would like to discuss, maybe to address the concerns of the Hampton Inn, and I know that this was an issue when this ordinance was presented initially back in 2016, that maybe we ought to, by ordinance, require more reporting than just annually. Maybe, that helps assure the lodging properties that, we're not joking, we're serious about the presentation of the use of those funds and what's going on with the program. And so, I would just throw it out for discussion. Maybe it's, once a quarter, maybe it's twice annually. And ultimately, I think this next comment is something that the Board of Supervisors has to decide, but maybe even once annually at the Board of Supervisors level. I certainly would consider language similar to that. I'm one board member of 5 there, so it would be up to the rest of them. But I wouldn't have an issue where this got agendized on a regular Board of Supervisors meeting once annually. But it seems to me that more than once annually by ordinance isn't a bad thing to demonstrate to the lodging properties that we're serious about. I don't know that I'd put monthly because I think there are too many things that could go wrong with that. The person in the position could be sick, any one of a number of things. But, you know, maybe we say 3 times annually. Maybe that's a compromise. So I just throw that out there for discussion.
No, I think it's a good point, Stacy, that, you know, has always been the lodging properties concern and the lack of transparency, and we certainly want to make sure that they feel comfortable that they're getting everything they need. And I think a report to the Board of Supervisors annually is also appropriate. They're the ones approving the tax, and so they should get a report annually. I'm open to quarterly or even or 3 times a year. I don't know if any of the other board members have any thoughts or concerns. I'd love to hear them. No?
So maybe the number we settle on is 3 a year. That's a little less than quarterly. It's
Mike?
is
Whatever that is. I don't know if
triannually. I don't know if that's a word. Refer to our wordsmith. Is triannually a word?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that.
if you would have had an answer for that, Todd, I would have been impressed. But again, this motion is just to move this on to the Board of Supervisors for approval, not the language, correct?
Correct. I wouldn't put it in the motion. I would just ask that the district attorney's office include triannually.
All right.
Commissioner Webster to put that in.
Chair Jones?
3
Chair-
times per year.
Consider yourself asked about I don't even know if I can say that, triangularly. But
Chair Jones, could I just add?
Yes.
I'm not speaking as a board member, as staff. I like the idea for the Board of Supervisors, if that presentation or that report could be done after the fiscal year. So that way we put the budget in line with the actions, the activities, the events, if that's okay. So when we provide that report to Board of Supervisors, it could be for the prior fiscal year, if that would be something the board would consider.
I don't think, I wouldn't disagree with that. I don't think that needs to be in the ordinance. That specificity needs to be in the ordinance. If we say annually, you could do it every November, and that would be annually, so.
once every fiscal year. Any other comments? All right, then if I could get a motion.
I move to recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the ordinance imposing and or continuing the 1% transient occupancy tax to be used primarily for arts and culture.
I'll second that. This is Bobby.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item 10.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
if I can just clarify from my understanding. As I look up triannual, it's the dictionary.com says that it's commonly used to mean one of 2 things: occurring once every 3 years or occurring 3 times per year.
Well,
So I will clarify that your meaning was 3 times per year, and I will use the appropriate language. And I also understand that you meant to modify the language to include an annual reporting requirement to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, you're correct in both cases.
Thank you.
Say April, August, and December.
For the reasons that Supervisor Giomi mentioned, I would shy away from including April, August, the specificity of April, August, and December in the ordinance, simply because somebody could be sick, or there could be something happening that particular day where the report's not able to be made. So I would recommend leaving it at
Fair enough.
3
Thank you.
times annually.
I would leave that to the executive director to make that schedule. Any other questions? All right, on to item 10, introduction of the CTA Arts and Culture, and this is for discussion only. Program services contracted vendor and discussion of the tasks to be completed. David, I think we have a guest, and
We do. I'm excited to say that we have Gina Lopez here, the Executive Director of the Brewery Arts Center. The Brewery Arts Center was chosen as our vendor to help us transition through these next 4 months. And I'm excited to have Gina on board. I'm going to let her answer any questions and let her introduce herself to the board at this time. And then we'll just talk a little bit about the tasks and the scope of work as it stands right now for the next 4 months. So with that, welcome, Gina.
Thank you. As David said, I'm Gina Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of the Brewery Arts Center. I've been at Brewery Arts Center as acting ED first since 2014 and full-time ED since March of 2015. And during that time, we've been watching everything that you're doing here very closely. And we think we know what the property owners are looking for when it comes to reporting. We work with all the other entities already. We have 15 other partner organizations in the arts and in the culture sector that we work with. And we know that building an equality and sustainability and a healthy community will help not only tourism, but create the community we want to live in. We have been able to do reporting for our events, even our free events in the past, if you recall. I did a full report at the end of 2019 stating our impact, and we are able to come up with creative ways to figure that out on even free events. So I think not only completing the tasks at hand that we were hired to do, we can also come up with a way to create proof of value in the 1% tax and really alleviate any concerns that the property owners have.
thank you. You have, I know the board members have the very specific, I think we started with 7 tasks, we're down to 6 that you're responsible for, you and the Brewery Arts Center. Are there any questions on those tasks or any questions for Gina from the board? None?
I'll just make a comment. I think knowing Gina and the Brewery Arts Center and the work that they do, I think this is a great match for this interim period to get us through. I think we couldn't have picked a better organization to partner with for the short term because there's not going to be a lot of get up to speed time. And, Gina's already got the knowledge in her head to be able to do what we need to do. So I look forward to working with her and thank her and the BAC for submitting.
Thank you.
No, I couldn't agree more. You have a great reputation, and the Brewery Arts Center has done some wonderful things. And I'm along with Board Member Giammi, I think during this bridge time, or what that we're calling it, you'll do a wonderful job, and we'll be very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you. And I would like to say we do realize it's just a transitional period, but we are committed to setting the next person or entity up for success.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Well, thank you, Gina.
All right,
Appreciate you
thank you.
coming by and speaking with us. Now to action item 11, discussion and possible action regarding the annual performance review of David Peterson, CTA Executive Director, the review of past objectives and adoption of future objectives for the Executive Director, and approval of an overall rating of his performance over the past year. Chris, I know you're going to give the staff summary, so why don't I turn it to you for that, and then I'll have a few more comments.
All right. So on December 17th of 2018, CTA appointed David Peterson to serve as the Executive Director for CTA pursuant NRS 244A-619. CTA is authorized to hire and retain officers, and as such, any annual performance review of such officers must be done by board during a public meeting. David Peterson was provided notice of the annual performance review on January 7th of 2021, and per Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority employee policies and procedures, employees may receive an annual merit increase for work performance upon recommendation of appointing authority. Although on May 11th of 2020, the CTA board suspended annual merit increases during fiscal '21. So the board will consider David's performance as executive director from the period of December 17th, 2019 to December 16th of 2020, and will adopt the performance objectives for the next review period.
Thank you, Chris. David, if you could, I think I'd like to start with you going through the objectives that we had for you for 2020.
Sure.
Go through those and their status, and then after that, we'll have discussion from the board about that, and then we'll go through for your objectives and goals for 21.
Okay, thank you, Chair Jones. So in your packet on page 5 of 6, you'll see the 9 objectives that you all laid out for me last January for calendar 20. So the first objective was to build and launch a tourism industry-oriented website, which we affectionately refer to as our .biz website, so that's visitcarsoncity.biz. And we did launch that on 2/5/2020. So again, all of this is with the help of this team that you have here in this room and Zach on the line. So I just want to remind everybody of that. I have a great team that's made these things happen. So number 2, write and submit CTA policies and procedures for board approval. This one is underway, and the plan is, you'll see when we get to the objectives for 21, to have those policies and procedures brought back to you guys at the end of this calendar year. Number 3, write and submit a 5-year strategic plan for fiscal 21 to 25. So we tabled this, and talking with the chair, obviously COVID has been something else to say the least. And the thought was, in talking with Chair Jones, we really need to have a very fluid and flexible strategic communications plan, which we did adopt, if you all recall, back at the October 2020 meeting. And so just kind of given the uncertainty around COVID and how we're very limited in terms of what we're currently doing right now and maybe even, for the rest of this year, and I'll talk about this with the objectives for 21 as well. The thought is we stick with a very fluid, flexible strategic communications plan that allows us to make changes on the fly. And I can explain that a little bit more when we talk about the 21 objectives. So this has not been completed, but it's something that obviously when we're hopefully through COVID, I'd like to come back around and then bring a strategic plan to the board for their consideration. On number 4, bringing digital data collection in play for the 2020 events. James did a great job here. We were ready. This was all in place on 2/4, and then of course the following month, everything gets pulled out from underneath, and we have no events. But it is there. It is ready to go if and when we are ready to bring events back to Carson City. Develop a Visit Carson City media kit. Again, Lydia did a fantastic job in digitizing our media kit that was put onto the website on 2/29/20. And we also have, if you all recall, the one sheeter that accompanies that as well in a paper format. Number 6 was identify and develop Visit Carson City travel trade kit. That was completed with James and Lydia's help on 2/5. So we're all set up. Part of that is the MICE page, if you all recall, and we have the motor coach section and the group tour and travel section on the website. The next one is what we just decided today. So engaging the lodging properties regarding the 1%. So I won't regale you with all the conversations again that I had over the last 6 months of last calendar year and the month of January, but happy to say that with your decision today, I feel like we're there. Now it's just up to the Board of Supervisors to take the recommendation from there, which I look forward to presenting, I think, in March at the March board meeting. So that one, I feel, by and large, was accomplished given the timelines. It did come back underneath us on the 17th, a day after this review period, but I'm gonna count that one as a yes, accomplished for last year. Number 8 is reimagine the Kit Carson Trail experience with our sandstone medallion markers and a new digital experience. So I'm super, this is a whole team here, you guys, like everybody, Chris, Linda, James, Lydia, Jess when she was here, and Zach. a great collaboration with the city and Public Works and the Historical Society, the Historic Resources Commission, Community Development. I'm very pleased with how this came about, and obviously we have the sandstone markers. They're in with the exception of the ones on the state property, and I didn't know that I had to go through an authorization process with state lands and Public Works for that. So everything except for those 7 markers, those were all in as of November last year. Obviously, as you guys know, we have the brand new paper version of our map. We have that digitized on the website as well. So everything was completed, and now it's just a question of the weather cooperating and getting back onto Public Works schedule. I'm happy to say that the authorization and the approvals from state lands and Buildings and Grounds, State Public Works, is in place for those last 7 markers, with just small changes in terms of the final location where those markers can sit. So maybe this month, it may be March as well, before we can get those last 7 in. And then the last one was creating a strong and effective digital strategy built around the new site to actively collect visitor data. And I'm happy to say that that was implemented as of February 2020. And then that's something that just continues to be refined. So organic traffic, paid traffic, and we're measuring that every day to .com and .biz. And so as we create events, Lydia, obviously that's under Lydia's purview, but as we create events and conversions on the website, we are definitely tracking those. And it's one of those things that's ever expanding and evolving. So that one was completed back in February 2020. So happy to answer any questions about the previous set of objectives for me.
Well, I think I'll start. I'm not sure if anyone could imagine back in December or January of last year, when these objectives were put together, that we'd have the year that we've had and the disruption. And I think although some of them, were not complete, they weren't complete for a reason. And I think you mentioned that because we needed to be fluid. We had a completely changing dynamic, and the country we're in a pandemic. So I think the past year with these 9 objectives that you did, an admirable job, along with your staff, of moving and pivoting whenever you needed to. But with that, I'll open it up from comments from the board about the objectives for 2020.
Steve Kemp, for the record. I would echo what Mike had stated, and I think that you did a tremendous job along with your team. I think that you guys were able to really be adaptable, and you were very flexible, and you accomplished a lot more than I think probably people imagine that you might be able to. Always very approachable, very easy to work with, very welcoming feeling. So I appreciate your efforts and think you've done a tremendous job. Thank you.
There you go.
This is Bobby Rader for the record. Yeah, I just want to echo what has been said already, but just what an amazing job you guys have all done as a team, and how you've been able to make so much progress in spite of all the obstacles of this past year is just impressive. And I just want to thank you for all your hard work. It's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have that much to add. I think, I don't know how many of you saw the Super Bowl commercial with the lemons falling out of the sky. But and for those of you who didn't see it, you got to watch it because it was better than the football game. But that was 2020. I mean, literally lemons hitting us on the head. And I can't imagine a different staff than the one we had doing any better than the job that you did. So I'm appreciative of the group of people that we had in place, because I don't think things would have turned out as well for us as a body without your leadership. So I think you did a admirable job, and the staff, I know you rely on them heavily, and I know in evaluating you We really are evaluating your whole team. And they did they did a remarkable job. So do you want, Mr. Chair, to talk about next year's goals now, or do you want to wait a moment?
Well, I think,
I
can
just
we
have
make the
two.
motion for the review score now before we discuss next year's goals and objectives? I think we need to talk about them.
It looks like it's agendized as one item, so, but I'm happy to do what you'd like.
And- Yeah. Even if you could
Thank-
go through those.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So as far as the objectives for this coming year, first, number one is oversee the integration of the arts and culture program into the CTA. So I know that's a bit presumptuous because I was assuming maybe it might get approved today and recommended to move forward, and the Board of Supervisors will approve that in March. But that's going to be a huge part of not only the rest of this calendar year, but really the first half of next fiscal year as well.
I would just add, I think even if the tax doesn't pass, and we can't presume that it will,
Yeah.
that there will be an arts and cultural component
Oh, sure.
absent the tax. So,
Yeah.
I think number one's a valid objective regardless.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. And then obviously we're going to come back, and this is, obviously Chris is going to be the load is on her to help me with policies and procedures for the CTA, but we will have those done by the end of this calendar year. That's objective number 2. And then number 3, I've got to update and maintain a fluid, COVID-friendly strategic communications plan to include not only destination marketing, but destination management components. And I think that's been such a big shift as a DMO. I almost see us as a DMMO, marketing and management organization. A lot of what we've been doing this past year, the team and I, is managing our destination more so than marketing. As you know, we had no marketing. I mean, we went completely dry in March, right? I think March, April, May, and then June, and we only came back in July with our Discover Your Capital campaign. So we plan to have that completed for June, seeing how things go. I know this is dependent upon vaccinations happening by the summer or the fall, but this is what I see as the most important thing to help me and the team, depending on what is going on out there, in the U.S. and in the world, right? And being able to be proactive as far as pivoting, as somebody said earlier, on a dime. Maybe we can open up a couple different DMAs moving forward, and not just leveraging our efforts here in Carson City. I mean, not in Carson City, but in Nevada. So that's what number 3 entails. Number 4 is coordinate and execute the CTA's first integrated creative brand campaign. If you all recall, we had to move this. Well, some of you may not, but we had to punt this forward because of COVID and cutting expenses back because of the drastic decline in revenues to conclude fiscal 20. And so this is something that I want us to invest. I want us to be ready, maybe, and what this plan of attack allows us to do is to be ready for January 2022, as far as having a nice, cohesive, first ever integrated campaign for our display advertising, our television, our over-the-top advertising, you name it, we're going to have an integrated effort. So I know this is something that Lydia's looking forward to. She's done an amazing job of piecing things together, depending on the mediums and the channels that we are actively on. But this is taking, the full step forward, right, as a destination. So I look forward to undertaking that this summer, and then our hope is to have the board along for that process, so you all can see a couple of different creative concepts and get that feedback. We're going to integrate a research component to that, some ad copy testing as well. And the hope, if all goes well, will be to come back in front of you all in December with our final look and feel for that creative. And you see some display ads, a television spot, the whole 9 yards. So I'm actually very excited to bring that to the CTA and to have that integrated campaign effort. And the next one, this is a big one. I'm working on this with James. is to continue development and implementation of a data-driven special event strategy with a new emphasis on quality of place and experiences that transform. You all are aware we made some changes as it relates to printing, and that was sort of a first step in how we're looking and categorizing events. This is really taking things to the next level. So beyond quality of life, we're looking at quality of place. And that's when we kind of take the destination and we see what can be improved and updated and what's appropriate for the situation. And I think this is a great time. It's a great, I don't mean that in a good way. We don't have events going on right now, but because we don't, it's going to allow us to take a look at what should we be bringing here to Carson City, having criteria in place to determine what's an event that we want to support, and I think less is more as we look forward. Can we mix and match arts, culture-related events with outdoor recreational opportunities and events, whether it's a tournament or a bike race? I heard a lot of feedback from different hoteliers talking about the arts and culture and continuing that funding. They want to see multicultural events, and they love the idea of, say, a bike race and then having a concert or an art festival or something along those lines, and mixing and matching those types of events. And I think what I want to see is when somebody leaves here, how do they feel? Do they feel like they had a great time, when they came and visited Carson City? So when we talk about experiences that transform, I want to integrate that into how we're measuring, how we're evaluating, how we're deciding, what types of events do we want to endorse and support. So I'm very excited to bring the board along for the ride on this one, and the hope is we'll be ready to go for July 1st for fiscal 22. So we've got a lot of work between now and June on that front. And then the last one, which I think again goes to the destination management side of things, is to expand visitcarsoncity.biz as a resource to the Carson City tourism industry. So again, the website is a living, breathing thing. We're always changing, always updating. You saw in our last couple of meetings, we've got the new MICE page where we've got the new convention and meeting space. I'm not going to steal your thunder, James, but that's an idea of the type of sort of flexibility we need with our .biz website, and to be a resource for all of our tourism businesses and otherwise in Carson City. So we will continue to expand the .biz, make it a resource, make it valuable for our tourism partners. And so I've got that on there as number 6. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Any comments from the board on goals and objectives for 2021? Board Member Giammi?
Yeah, 2 things. One, I just want to make sure that the strategic plan, I don't think we're going to be in a position to accomplish it in 2021. But I don't also want it to fall off the radar. So I think, making sure that we put it in next year's discussion for 2022, and maybe even include, maybe by then we'll be able to have people together, maybe even include a public workshop that includes this board on doing a SWOT analysis or something along those lines, or a facilitated discussion on some of the things that we should be talking about. And you don't need details now, but I just think that's a good way to go for, going forward. I brought this up before, and I know that I'll defer to your answer, Dave, but I think I don't want to lose sight of, because I get this question all the time, of an integrated place for an events calendar. And I realize that that's a challenge in these times because there aren't events. But we're going to start slowly towards the latter third of the year, picking up events. And something that is screamed for constantly in our community is sort of a master calendar. And I'd really like to see that listed as a goal. Maybe it could be incorporated into another goal. I'll leave that to you to decide. But because I know it's part of the .biz site, but I just, the Chamber's mentioned it to me, how we have conflicting events and we have events that overlap. And it would just be nice if someone could go and say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z on November 1st and 2nd. Let me go to the calendar. Hey, there's nothing there. This is great. And later find out that the chambers had something scheduled for 6 months, or the cities had something, or anyway.
Could I, Chair, may I just address that? That's something that we're actually working through in number 5 right now. So James prepared a document. We're working with our outside vendor on this, where we laid out all 12 months for everything except for arts and culture. And this was going on before we transferred the arts and culture back. What we just finished last month was to overlay all of the arts and culture events that take place in Carson City in a normal year. So this is pre-COVID, mind you. Gallery openings, exhibition, things of that nature. So we are doing exactly that right now. Not as far as a public calendar. This is the internal piece, right? Where we've got one calendar, everything sports, everything bike race, basketball tournament, whatever the case may be. Overlaying that with arts and culture, and we're trying to see how does that plot out over 12 months, 365 days, because this is going into our criteria as far as how we can maybe move some of these events around and bring events into shoulder season months, right? Where we don't have 10 things taking place on the same weekend on July 4th, things of that nature. So that is a piece of 5. As far as the public-facing calendar, we and I don't want to call on you guys, but maybe Lydia, you could just back me up on the actual public-facing calendar. It has been difficult, you are right, to say the least, because we need to rely on our partners to approach us about adding an event onto our calendar. So we have the calendar for events, right? People can come in and I think, right, create their own login, right? So that's our .biz piece. Or they can email. In fact, I just sent something, I think, to James today about that came in under the, director or partners at email that I have off the .biz website. So we are adding those events. What is a challenge for us are all of the locals only events, because there are so many of them. We don't even know half the time all of these little micro events that are going on. And that's where Ronnie on the chamber side wanted to deal with those and let us focus on more of the larger events that are actually more open to visitors and bringing in tourists from the outside. So we're trying to work, in conjunction with the chamber, because you might see on their calendar, 16 different things on one day. And I know from talking to Beverly, sometimes she spends hours, right, just going through the internet, trying to find this information, however she can. So that has been a challenge, to say the least, as far as like a master events calendar. And I don't want to speak for Lydia, but will you just jump in there a little bit as far as that part of it, the public-facing calendar?
I would agree with everything that you just said. Yeah, it's been the collaboration, and we have the community parts on our calendar as well, so they can, enter them too. But I think also because our website is so new, and I think that we're really getting a lot more advertising out than we did before. I still think there's a large educational piece that we still have to get people to our website to submit events. So I think that's going to be probably step number 1, is the educational piece of letting people know where they can enter. But
well, maybe you can include some language that this year will be used to educate those businesses on the use of that public-facing calendar. And I still would like to see if there's a way to integrate what the chamber has with what we have. Maybe you can just flat out offer it up to them to enter those things that they have on their calendar onto ours. And, there wouldn't be any reason, given what you just described to me, that they couldn't get their own login, and maybe they have it already, and enter those events. And I don't expect you to duplicate their work, but it seems like if they're interested in having, because the chamber is one of the people who has asked me about a master calendar. So it seems to me if they have an interest, so maybe we can include it to that extent, that we'll work on educating our partners on accessing a calendar and utilizing the calendar feature.
Stacy, from your perspective, what is like the main priority as to why they want to integrate? Is it for scheduling and planning purposes?
Yeah, I think the comments that I hear from people are, gosh, I wish I knew X, Y, and Z was happening. I didn't know it was happening. Or, you also hear someone say, well, who's the idiot that scheduled X on top of Z, right? So, I mean, those are the comments that I get. Why don't these people talk? Why are X and Z happening at the exact same time? That doesn't make any sense. So, I know we can't fix all of those things, but I know, to me, in my mind, there's three components. One is the chamber, one is certainly the CTA, and the other is the city, who gets requests for special event permits for use at parks. So it seems to me that those three things, if we get on top of those three things, offer to our businesses to put their events on, give the chamber the opportunity to submit information, and grab what the city is doing or permitting, then we'd have at least a huge step, in my opinion, in the right direction. And those three things seem doable to me, because the city spits out those things and has an approval component. You may even be able to contact them and say, hey, can you add us as an approver? Maybe it's, you're not really an approver, but you would get an email and it would say, hey, so-and-so is holding an event at Mills Park, and it's a special event and it includes all these things. And then you would know about it at least.
Okay.
I just don't want to miss that opportunity for there to be a spot for people to go. But those things that I stated to you are the things that I hear from people, both running the events and people who I know in the community.
So maybe we could modify number 6, where we've got expand the visitcarsoncity.biz as a resource. Maybe we say expand visitcarsoncity.biz and .com as a resource, or as resources to the Carson City tourism industry, to include a master event calendar, or a partner type calendar, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's good. That'd be
Okay.
perfect. I would totally agree with that.
Is that under 6 or would that be under 5?
So it's as far as the public facing calendar, that would be 6.
I think it's good at 6.
Yeah, and what we're doing behind the scenes is, Stacy, where you're going about this whole issue about events taking place on the same weekend, that's why we're laying out, like I said, every weekend, 52 weekends.
And I think that calendar in the background, where you can try and market to those events that are in the shoulder seasons, where you can sort of sell it to them and say, look, if you come the first week in April, there's nothing going on. We can get you hotel rooms, we can get you parks, we can get you XYZ. I think that you probably need to do that anyway, and are going to do that, because otherwise you can't bring those things in. But I'm really talking about a public-facing calendar.
So that, Mike, our Chair Jones, that's definitely under 6.
Yeah, I think the important part, what will happen this year is, Stacy mentioned the education of our partners, and making progress there. I don't know if we can get to the final product, but I would like to see that you make progress with educating them and knowing where to go and how to update.
And I can give you an example, Stacy, of exactly how we're going to leverage the .biz website for our arts and culture organizations. So the plan is, we've got Brewery Arts Center on board, sitting down with each of those arts and culture organizations. We're going to build out their own page on .biz. So they'll have their own section, right, as a resource. And what that allows us to do when we're sitting down, pulling all their information together, gathering images, gathering that content for their own gallery or their exhibition space, or if it's the BAC as a physical location, gives us the opportunity to talk with them about events and the type of information that we need, and showing them how they can create their own account to go in, load those events. Lydia and Zach would approve set events on the website. So I think this is a perfect opportunity. Good timing.
And my final comment about the objectives are that it would be helpful to me, and I think the rest of the board, is during the course of the year, if you're bringing something to us for a decision or for discussion, if you just sort of make a note or bring up saying, hey, that ties back to, to the objectives you've given me, you'll remember number 2 was blah, blah, blah. Here's what we're doing. And I think it just helps us in our mind as we go through the year to tie all of that together, so that we have that in our heads when we're doing this next year at the end of the year, instead of, having to go back and recall if if what he said, he really did.
Yeah, yeah. You probably want to listen to me talking at the meetings late at night, so that's fine. I'm okay with that.
We're getting there tonight, so.
Yeah. Will this need to be included in the motion? The language?
Sure, if there's no other comments, I'm happy to
I mean, yeah, are
take
there any
a shot at a
comments?
motion.
I just have one more comment, and it's more about the team and David's performance. And I think I spoke a little bit about this last year, about the passion that David brings every day. I've worked over my career with a lot of people with a lot of passion, but I don't know if I've ever worked with someone who brings the passion every single day. And it reflects, the team also brings that same passion. And, leadership creates great teams, and you certainly have one. So, in my opinion, you've done an outstanding job this past year. And wanted to personally thank you because you've done a great job working with me and I think the other board members.
Well, thanks, everybody, yeah. I know I drive the team crazy and Mike crazy 7 days a week and at odd hours of the night, but they're always there, and it's a wonderful team. So I'm very pleased and blessed to have these guys on board helping, because they too have a great passion for driving tourism to Carson City. So thank you, everybody.
Well, if there's no other comments, we'll take a stab at a motion.
Chris, are we looking for a specific language in terms of the rating?
As far as the way we did it last year was we took the comments that you guys made in the meeting, and then when we did the official HR paperwork, all of those were included. So I don't know, legally, Todd could tell us if we need to do something different, but that's how we handled it last year.
I think we had to put a rating, a label, but.
Like a number,
Todd?
a word,
Outstanding, I think, was the there's exceeds expectation is in, I think, the form I saw.
Right, so if you're doing it that way, then the standard, like with the cities, is there's outstanding, there's above expectations, there's, I think it's meets expectations and below expectations.
Okay. I move to approve the performance evaluation and award Executive Director David Peterson an outstanding rating for the accomplishment of the objectives and to incorporate the Executive Director objectives for calendar year 21 as presented on the record with the changes to number 6 as discussed on the record.
Second?
I'll second that. This is Bobby.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, David, for all your hard work.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
On to item 12, non-action items. Executive Director update, Dave?
Thank you, Chair Jones. I only have 2 things, so I will be brief on my Executive Director report. I just wanted to provide everyone with an update on the V&T Railway front as your selected member on the V&T Commission. So as some of you know, Stan Jones stepped down at last month's V&T Commission meeting. So at this time, we're a commission of 4. My peers elected me as the chair to finish out Stan's term through June. Also, unfortunately, at that meeting, Elaine Spencer, who is our general manager, announced to the commission that she would not be seeking an extension to her contract. So she will technically be done on March 31st of this year. Because of that, we have brought a vendor on right now to help with a fiscal sustainability audit, as well as a strategic business plan, and we'll have workshops that start actually this month and continue through March as well. So to kind of help us figure out righting the ship or the train, so to speak, as we move forward. Because as you all know, we have great challenges on the train front with the capacity limits. We need to be 100% full. We need that third car to have any level of profitability on running the train. So with 25% capacity, it's not feasible to do that. But I am excited to say that rail bikes are coming back starting in April. So we'll have 9 cars for April and May, and then we're going to bounce to 15 in June. So this is, I think, an exciting opportunity that we have in front of us to do some themed rail bike excursions. The rail bike and hike was a huge success, completely sold out last fall, and we were just testing the waters with that. So I think we can have some really cool ideas moving forward for particular weekends or holidays, and do some really neat things with the rail bikes going down into the canyon. So a quick update on the V&T front. On Travel Nevada front and grants, so they just launched on, I think last Monday, if I'm not mistaken, a rural marketing grant program with $500,000. So this is an exciting surprise. As you all know, we did receive, I think, almost $47,000 in CRF grants through the Nevada Commission on Tourism last fall. And that allowed us to do 3 different projects. So we have another opportunity. The team and I are working on those ideas right now for submission. And I'll just remind the board that this is the normal marketing grant program. So there's a 50-50 with the match. And we have until the 21st to submit, and all the funds must be obligated by June 30th. So unfortunately for these guys, Lydia and James, it's a very tight timeline because we have to have those funds expended and those programs completed. But we are committed to seeing what we can get as far as a little slice of that $500,000 to help us get through this fiscal year. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for David? I'm going to move on to the transient occupancy tax.
Thank you, Chair Jones. So in your packet, you've got the big piece of paper with the lodging revenue actual versus forecast. December, if you recall, I was thinking we were going to do a little better than I had originally projected a month ago. And unfortunately, we came in about 10% lower, just under 23% decline as compared to December 2019. With that, I did go ahead and adjust January slightly downward from the 17.5% decline to 23%, and just a small 0.5% adjustment for February as well. So I'm kind of looking at Jan-Feb along the lines of December, and I'm hoping we're going to beat the number for January, but I think I feel comfortable with those 2 projections as far as January and February. And then for right now, I did make the adjustments March through June, and I haven't touched those since last month's meeting. So net is, expect us to be about 3.5% above fiscal 20 at this point. So that's at 3.14%. And then as far as when we budgeted FY21, we're tracking just under 10% higher, if you all recall, from our May meeting. So good, obviously, but I have to tell you, I was talking with the chair earlier today. Numbers are up and down, up and down. And in speaking with a lot of the properties, their occupancy changes from the morning to the night, with walk-up business and same-day reservations. So they're having a hard time just dealing with their own property, which is complicated by a factor of 23 for me to figure out aggregating all the different properties together. So I'm trying to do the best I can. I don't like missing, but this is sort of unprecedented, and there's no model for me to work off of to drive these calculations. So I'm winging it, to be honest with you. So anyway, if there are any questions as to this forecast as of today's meeting, I'm happy to answer those at this time.
No, I think you're right. The fluctuation right now is, I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon until more shots get in people's arms and people feel more comfortable traveling. The booking window, the speaker was saying, is very short right now for Carson City. Maybe 72 hours, and in some cases, just a day out. So for travelers right now. So it's very hard to predict. But any questions for David on transit execs on the board? Thank you, David. Events. James?
Thank you. I'll move this a little bit closer. In January's meeting, I believe David gave you guys an update on the mice and the website, and I just wanted to follow up on some recent developments that came about that. Spoke with a few of the lodging properties, and they suggested that we include a catering option in addition to trying to find out some pricing range. The pricing range came about after we did some research to kind of find. And David and I, what we were trying to figure out is to see if the MICE page would just be a resource only, or if we can actually put some feet behind it. And in order to do that, we did some research, and we found places like meetings.com. And you notice that one of the search criterias for them, for an event organizer or a meeting planner, is a price range for them to figure out if a location in Carson is even within their budget. And so because of that, we want to know the answer to that so that we can provide some of these price range to on our MICE page to provide additional information for people to actually find for them to planning. So we're working on the process of finishing up all the catering options and also seeing if property owners are willing to share some of their price range. I know that you guys work together in many ways, but you're also competitors, so we're trying to walk a fine line and make sure that we are not stepping on any toes. Similar to what we did last year when events were coming, I wanted to go back to that and go through some of our canceled, pending, and active events. The robotics showcase was canceled. Working with Steve with the Futsal Matchup League in March, and then in April we have the Comstock Shootout that was canceled. CYSSA, which is the trap shoot tournament that takes place in Carson, is pending at the moment based off of some documents that we're still working on with business and industries to make sure that we're in compliance with some of the requirements. The last two events, the paranormal tours and the live action role play, takes place at the prison, which is outside of our jurisdiction. That's just something that we're working with Brew to make sure that, he's following the governor's directives. On the next slide here, we make sure that we do our best to be in compliance with the current directives in the way that they stand, and the limitations that, or guidelines that the city adds on top of any of these events here. So we're making sure that anyone that we are working with currently, specifically the futsal tournament and the trap shoot right now, is in compliance with the state directives. So I'm in constant contact with Tori from Business and Industries to make sure that we're not doing something outside of what's currently permissible. Obviously, if things do change, we will update our documents accordingly. Coming up in March, this was the event that I attended the virtual tour back in September, October. The March Go West Summit is on March 1st through the 5th. The February 1st was the first day that they opened up registrations for us to schedule pre-set appointments with international tour operators. So I've been working on trying to schedule times and negotiate times that I can meet with them to have these meetings. If you recall, this was some of the appointments where I would have 2-3 a.m. appointments with tour operators, and there's already appointments within that time range already. So I'm anticipating trying to figure out appropriate times and schedule out my time correctly so that I can effectively communicate with some of these international tour operators. The target and the message is very similar to what we did back in September, October. We're trying to reach and double down on the Canada, China, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and United Kingdom, fitting our FIT markets and our tour operators and receptive operators with the appropriate messages. It's easier this time around because all the information is already kind of compiled, so I'll just change more of the aesthetic appeal of what they look like, and also talk about the more recent Staybridge Hotel, which is our new offering. So that's all the things that's going on within the next couple of months, and I open to any comments or questions.
Questions for James? James, are these final, the April, like the Comstock shootout? There's no wiggle room there. It seems a little early for them to cancel, but
Yeah, I tried to reach out to John to get some more information on that, to figure out, at first we suspected that maybe Parks and Rec was the ones that made the decision, but it wasn't them. So I kind of reached out to Steve because he has a relationship with John. I was hoping maybe, have you heard from him?
I just speak loudly. Oh, there we go. I haven't been able to get any information that would provide any more insight as to what you have as to why the decision was made, but it has been made, and that's all I know.
Okay.
any other questions for James?
I'll continue to try and reach out to get some sort of answers. Maybe there's something that he found out, maybe what California restriction that may have prevented him from planning. I don't know the answer to that, but I can still look into it and hopefully get you guys an answer before the next board meeting.
I can briefly speak to that. I do know that California has made a declaration that the youth sports are not allowed to be played in their state, that their players can only travel across state lines to playing events, or they could be held liable for any COVID implications when they returned home. So that's something that's out there that may have scared him off, but I don't know what percentage of his teams came from Sacramento or the Bay Area either.
Gotcha. A lot.
Thank you. Anything else? Thanks, James. Lydia, marketing update?
All right. We're rounding home. All right.
Are we always going to have to do the switcheroo?
Yes, we will. And Stacy did give me till 6 p.m. tonight to finish the meeting, so just on the record. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, the electric chair starts at 120 volts at 6, and then it goes up from there. But only David's chair, so it's okay.
Okay. Give me a second here. PowerPoint went a little crazy on me. Okay, I'm just gonna fly through what I've got. All right, so we're gonna go through the PR report and the visitor guide update, our web traffic and content. We have the co-op campaign that we did through Travel Nevada, our current paid advertising and our lodging remarketing ads, and our winter commercial. And I will do this as quickly as I can. So as far as our PR report, fiscal year to date, we have 148.1 million unique visitors per month. We've reached 82.9 thousand people in print and a publicity value of 74,000. So we're working with Chrissy right now to get a little more creative in our PR efforts because we've been exhausting Nevada for quite a while now and only really been reaching out to Nevadans. As far as journalists are concerned outside of Nevada, people are interested, but they're not finding publications that are interested in printing travel right now. So we're in kind of a stalemate until things get lifted and maybe the vaccine boosts travel confidence. So right now, our December and January PR and mentions are pretty slim. All right. I'm not sure what's happening. There we go. All right. So our 2021 guide visitor guide refresh. We basically stole our 2020 guide, made updates, and we feel pretty confident that this is going to be a great visitor guide for 2021 as well. Really, when we released the 2020 guide, COVID had happened and we really didn't push it out at all because it just wasn't appropriate at the time. So we've updated some photos, we've incorporated rail bikes, we totally nixed all of the events and just directed them to the website, and incorporated some of the new photography as well. So you can find that actually on our visitor guide page on our website, and it's where people can download and also download our small visitor guide brochure if they like as well. So let's dive into the website. The larger box that you see on top with the 4,300 visitors, that is all of our paid traffic that we've delivered to the site from this time frame is from December 28th to January 26th when I could pull these numbers. So our social ads have been incredibly effective in reaching new audiences. It's really been mid-January when the social ads pick up around the 19th that you see. We've been really pleased with that traffic and new parts of the website that we've seen too. So our bounce rate right now is about 64.9%. It's a little bit higher than we would like to see. But in comparison, before our new site, we were almost at 90%. So we've drastically improved that. But we've got some work to do. So the smaller box on the bottom you see is the 14,795 users. That's the total traffic, including organic search and direct hits to our page. Our top landing pages, of course, are the homepage, things to do, the blog that was 5 things I wish I knew about visiting Carson City, the hot springs, which we pushed a lot in our current ads. Our hotel page is number 5, which we love to see. We also have ads pointing to our winter recreation activities that have also gotten a lot of hits. We love to see number 7, which is our subscribe page for gaining newsletter signups. So we're capturing a lot of emails through our social ads. And we also have the Kings Canyon Waterfall at number 8, the Kit Carson Trail at number 9, and then number 10 is still standing strong with the complete list of open Carson City restaurants. So we love to see that people are looking to eat out and support local. As far as our paid social, this is a carousel ad, and I'll show you actually a walkthrough of what this looks like. But these are just all of the slides land next to each other. Normally you scroll through them. Right now we're seeing, as I mentioned in the last presentation, that millennials are really going to be the next ones that are going to be up to bat as far as actually traveling. And we haven't done any specific targeting for them with social ads. So we've really used outdoor activities, where to grab a beer in our breweries. There's some history aspects in there, the waterfalls, snowshoe hikes. So it's doing really well. We've garnered 650 landing page views. We've reached 45,000 people and delivered 113,000 impressions in January with this one ad alone. These are 3 other social ads that we're running, and I'll give you an example of what that carousel ad looks like. This one is actually not specifically only for carousel. Maybe not. It's not letting me, so I apologize for that. For the sake of time, I'll just keep moving. The first one you see is our newsletter sign up, which is a video of our winter activities that Zach put together that's performing really well. We've had 290 newsletter email submissions to sign up for our newsletter in January alone. The middle one is our hotel retargeting. So we're delivering these ads to anyone that have visited our hotel page previously. And then we also created what we call a lookalike audience. So it mimics all those people that visited our page, and it mimics their interests and behavior and delivers those ads to them as well, people who are likely in the market to be looking for a hotel. So this one has been great. We've used that winter commercial there as well. We've had 250 landing pages to our hotel page alone from this one. This third one is the rediscover, rejuvenate, refuel, and recharge. So it's general winter activities that you can do in Carson City. You can also click the video for the museums, which allows you to see the video that Zach had created, the one with the great interview with Myron. So this has garnered 1,500 landing page views. It's piquing a ton of interest in the hot springs, which we've never had before. It's targeting cultural travelers, foodies, those interested in hot springs and spa-like activities. And we purposefully, normally we exclude Carson City from our targeting, but given that we're only looking at Nevada, we're using this time to really reach out to locals that maybe haven't found us yet so that we can get our events more in front of people in the future and try to garner more local activity. We had a comment from someone that lived here since 1987, he said he had no idea that there were hot springs in Carson City. So we're educating, and I love seeing comments like that. So we're really pleased with how these are turning out. So in January, in total, we reached 145,000 people. We delivered 378,000 impressions and delivered 3,300 landing page views to our site from social alone. Next, we'll hit to another really exciting topic was our Travel Nevada Co-op campaign. This we were really pleased to be a part of. So you can see that we delivered 3 million impressions. There were 3,100 clicks to the landing page of the Carson City hotels. We delivered 770 room nights with a gross booking total of $65,000. So we had a very small buy-in for this co-op. I think the total spend was closer to 40,000. So we're not sure if our small portion really delivered this or if it was the collective campaign that really helped drive these results. But regardless, it's definitely something that we would participate again. And we are just elated to actually deliver true room night stats
Keep
for
doing
Carson
it
City.
if it, until we figure it out. But,
Yep,
yeah, good
exactly.
numbers.
Did you say 40,000?
Yeah, it was multiple DMOs that went in on this campaign.
Okay, so
But-
we didn't spend 40,000.
No.
No.
Okay, that-
We spent closer to like 1,500.
Thank you. I was going to say 40,000 for a $65,000 return
No.
doesn't
No,
seem
we,
like
No.
ROI.
we piggyback.
I would hope you would fire me if that was the case. But no, we're really pleased to see with the buy-in for this, and clearly it's delivering results. But they were able to isolate that these were specifically to Carson City hotels and not just the surrounding area. All right, and we talked about Hulu last time and our winter commercial, so I'm hoping this one will at least play.
Carson City, more than just your state capital. It's where you can conquer mountaintops, chase waterfalls, and take in epic sunsets. Or get your gears turning and pedal year-round into adventure. Remember what it means to be a Nevadan. Discover your capital, Carson City.
So that is now playing on all of our YouTube advertising and on Hulu, and I've got some stats for you here in a second on that. So we'll be utilizing this commercial through the end of March, and we're ideally hoping to create 1 to 2 commercials per season to keep swapping out throughout our digital platforms and have different length of time for that too. But I think the grant that we got for the winter footage that we were able to receive, and Zach's also just done an incredible job, and he created that whole thing and worked with the voiceover, and we wrote it in-house. So we hope that performs well, and it has been so far. So why we decided to go on Hulu, here's some stats for you. There's 92 million ad-supported viewers on Hulu alone. 47% are the cord cutters, or what they're calling the generation stream, and their median age is about 33. So really in our target demographic there, and these are some of the results that we've seen. So obviously I wasn't able to pull this about a week after we launched. So at the time we had 6,500 impressions. We spent about $244. Our total outlook, we're looking to get about 26,000 impressions with that. Since I pulled these, I actually pulled this morning. Our breakdown is the same. 92% of our ads are being delivered on living room devices, which I love that we're in the homes of families and individuals and in their living room. 2% is computers, 6% is mobile devices. We love the mobile device because they can click through to our website. Right now, the impression show by genre has actually changed that comedy is now our highest. And we now have 12,000 impressions with about a $455 spend as of today. So comedy is number 1, drama is number 2, reality television is number 3, and our family shows are number 4, and then the other gets grouped in from there. So so far pretty pleased. Our CPM is pretty average for this type. It's not over or below. It's kind of right what we expected. So we're hoping, by the end of the campaign, we actually exceed what we were hoping to get with our target impressions. And that's what I've got. So happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Lydia. Questions from the board? All right. Thank you again.
All right.
Great job. Item E, future agenda items. Any request of David to provide any information or future agenda items? All right. Bobby?
Sorry. Oh, there it goes. Hi, this is Bobby Rader. I just wanted to know if Gina will be providing reports on her progress on the contract.
Yes. So she will be at the next three, or two, because we don't have an April meeting, but the next two regularly scheduled CTA board meetings, and we will provide progress report on each of those 6 tasks. That's
Okay.
absolutely what I'm planning to have happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, board comments or announcements, requests for information, anyone? All right, we'll move on to item 14, public comment. Desi, do we have anyone for public comment?
I see no public comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Excuse me. So that moves us to item 15. If there are no objections, I move to adjourn. We're adjourned.